Well, there's a guy by the name of Timothy Cain. Now, he is kind of a big deal in the gaming industry. He's been around for about 40 years now, and he is actually pretty well known as basically the mastermind behind the Fallout series. Yeah, though the Fallout lore is definitely a collaborative effort, he was kind of the first person to think of the entire environment. So he would be a lead programmer on Fallout 1 and 2. Now, after Fallout 2, the Fallout IP would actually be transferred from the company that Tim was working at called Interplay Productions to Bethesda, but since then he has worked on games like South Park: The Stick of Truth, as well as The Outer Worlds, and it looks like he's actually working on its sequel right now. I say all of this to say, yeah, he's obviously a huge deal in the gaming industry. He definitely knows a thing or two about trends in gaming, and he actually has a YouTube channel. Yeah, I didn't know about this until today, but essentially he makes these sort of video essay type of videos that kind of talks about things related to the gaming industry. Now, on the very first day of January, he made a video called Violence as the Default in AAA RPGs. Now, this gained quite a bit of traction. A lot of people are discussing it, and I'll link it in the description if you do want to watch it. It's about 14 minutes, but it's a very good video. I think it actually reveals a lot of stuff. When I first saw it, I have to admit, I kind of thought that he was trying to maybe like criticize violence in video games, which I thought, are you kidding me? That's actually the dumbest thing ever, that this guy worked on Fallout and now he's saying that violence shouldn't be in video games. But no, I was misunderstood. He is essentially making the point that really most AAA RPGs that lead the gaming industry today have violence in them, and more than that, violence is sort of the center focus of the game itself. He's not saying that's a bad thing, but essentially he's talking about why that is. Now, essentially the point he makes is that, I saw one person actually comment this, that violence sells. Yeah, which is definitely a good point. Like, you know how people say sex sells? Well, in the world of gaming, violence definitely sells. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. But more importantly, maybe, he talked about kind of the whole thing with trailers, like actual video game trailers. So basically he said that if your game is not violent, you don't really have much of a showcase in your trailers. You know, a video game trailer is only 30 seconds or 60 seconds. You're obviously going to show the highlights, but how do you show the complexity of your video game in just those 30 or 60 seconds? Well, you really can't. If your game is complex and diverse and interesting, you really can just kind of show the highlight reel. And a lot of times that can be why games like Call of Duty are so successful. You can really get that highlight reel to look really good. Whereas, you know, maybe a game like Fallout, though the action sequences are pretty sweet, I mean, you're not going to actually be able to show in that short trailer the actual depth that is in the video game, just in terms of your interactions with other characters and the lore and the story. You really can't show that. And what he says further is that, you know, for so many years, for decades even, violence has been what really leads to good sales of video games, and essentially, new studios in the gaming industry are going to want to emulate the games of these studios that are successful. But the other really good point that I think he makes in this video is basically talking about how if you want this to change, so to speak, and maybe not change, maybe that's not the right word, but if you want more attention to go to good games that maybe don't have violence in it, or have maybe a minimal amount of violence, that you basically have to put money toward these games. You know, the industry will reflect what gamers want. And I do think this is a good point. We're obviously seeing this today. Like, it's crazy that a game like Stardew Valley, or even like Minecraft, that doesn't really have like that much violence in it, or, you know, that's not the highlight of the game. It's crazy how, you know, that can be so successful, but obviously it just goes to show that not every gamer thinks the same way. You don't have to just have violence non-stop in your game. Yeah, it doesn't just have to be a 24-hour action sequence from a Die Hard movie. You know, you can have different complexities and different material in your game that really make it interesting besides just, you know, violence. So the point he makes that, you know, people should try to put money toward these games that they like, even if they don't have violence in them. I think we're already doing that with these games that blow up and don't really necessarily have violence in them, or games where violence is definitely not the center focus of what just makes it so great. Like, a little tangent here, but for example, I just started playing Persona 3 yesterday. It is my first Persona game that I've ever really actually gotten into, and so far I absolutely love it. And violence is like maybe a fourth of that game, at least from what I've played of it so far. You know, the really interesting part of that game is getting to meet people and, you know, doing different things, building these connections, and you really maybe can't highlight that in a trailer. I haven't seen any trailers for Persona 3, nor do I want to, because I think trailers kind of spoil things. But yeah, it is kind of just the trailer effect, because, you know, with Persona 3, for example, there's just no way that you can pack all of the great things that I've experienced so far in that game, you know, just in a small trailer. So that, I would say, is definitely a bit of a problem in the gaming gaming industry, and maybe the entertainment industry as well. Yeah, what is the easiest way to promote these games to a general audience that are not a Call of Duty sweat fest? There's probably not a great, perfect answer for that. But obviously with some of these games, it's working. Maybe it's word of mouth, the internet, YouTube, Reddit, I don't know. But regardless, like I said, Tim brings up great points. Like I said, check out his video if you want to. Like I said, I by no means think that violence in video games is a bad thing by any means, but it is interesting to kind of tackle the idea of why violence is such a center focus in a lot of these mainstream AAA RPGs. I don't know if it will stay that way forever. The gaming industry can be complex with how they make games. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.